Hello, yappers. Welcome to episode 5 of the Conversation Club. We are here to talk today about why I chose to move to Portugal, why I chose to leave Seattle, and what I learned in the whole process. I left June of last year, 2025, and we are currently, as I'm recording this, in May of 2026. So it's been almost a year. So we're not totally at the year mark yet, but lots of lessons from the process, and I'm still trying to process everything that I've learned. Let's get into it. Before we do that, though, I will preface this by saying and giving you a little taste of my life here in Lisbon, at least in the springtime, is that your girl went out last night with her friends until 5 in the morning, and she is hungover. So, forgive me if I sound a little hoarse or look a little rough on the video. I tried to record yesterday, and then my neighbors were being loud, and the construction downstairs was being loud. So, I felt like the weekend was probably the best time for me to record this. And yeah, so here we are doing the damn thing. So let's get into it. Why did I move abroad? I think a lot of people, most people who choose to leave the United States get asked that question a lot of like, why did you leave? America's the best country in the world. And it's not. But I personally have wanted to live abroad since high school. Coming from a very Chinese family, and they love to guilt an immigrant daughter, especially for the choices that she makes that might stray from their expectations. So I delayed this decision for a really, really long time. I'm the eldest daughter of an immigrant family, and I just, parentification from a young age has been a thing. So I really felt like I had a lot of familial responsibilities that I needed to devote myself to just uphold the family and the honor of my parents and of the rest of my family, to go to school, get a good degree, get a good job, and give back or have something to show for myself in terms of all the sacrifices that my mom made and that my family made to get me to America. And so choosing to leave America is like, we worked so hard to get you here. Why are you leaving? Right. But I really needed to make this decision for myself. And right after high school, I saw a lot of people actually take a gap year and take some time off before school to actually travel and to actually see the world. And I was so jealous of those people. I really envied them because they were choosing their own journeys and their own experiences and adventures in a way that I, at the time, didn't feel like I could do. That I was disappointing my family if I chose that path, or I was wasting the opportunity that my mother created for me by bringing me to America. And I was born in Seattle. So, yeah, having that privilege was something that a lot of my family and my ancestors wanted. And so, moving away from all of that was throwing it all away, quote unquote. And yeah, so that was a big reason why I didn't make this decision for so long. It was out of fear. And we'll talk about all of that in just a second. I did study abroad when I was in college. I studied abroad in Copenhagen, and it did give me a chance to travel in Europe specifically quite a bit, and realizing that it's just so easy to hop from country to country, that there are rail systems and so many modes of transport in a way that I know when I got back to the States, I was like, oh, I could go down to Oregon, I could go down to California. It's like basically the same as going from Denmark to the Netherlands or Denmark to Italy or whatever. And it was not. It was it was not that. But studying abroad did give me a little bit of a taste and a stronger thirst, frankly, for living outside of the US. I remember I was pretty depressed when I returned from my 4 months abroad, and I was sad that I was back in the States. The most potently, I guess is the best word I could use, that I felt this like depression coming back to America was after my trip to Italy in 2021. I remember I was so depressed. So I got back in like September, October, somewhere around there. And I remember October, November, December, I was just so upset that I was stuck in the United States. And I think that really inspired and motivated me to start taking steps towards this reality that we live in now. So I started my process to move in 2024. And a lot of people asked me, was it timing wise because of the election? Is that why you chose to leave? And I will say, it's not the reason I chose to leave. It was very convenient timing and it turned out to work out for me in that respect. But no, that wasn't the catalyst. I really have wanted this for a really long time. The second question I get the most, other than why did you choose to leave, is why did you choose Portugal specifically? Frankly, as many of you have heard this story, it is one of the few places I enjoy. As you know me, I am a recovering hater. I don't know if recovering is the right word because I'm not really trying to heal from being a hater. I know I'm going to talk about this in my mindset episode as well. This is something that a lot of my mindset coaches have talked to me about. It's like, you want to vibrate higher, you want to vibrate higher to align and call in the things that you want. And I'm just over here like, you know what? And I've told my therapist this too. I'm like, your girl just wants to be a hater for a little longer. Like, I'm still young. I'm only 31. I could be a hater for like another decade or two and be a total asshole. Anyway, we will get into that in just a second. But the point is that Portugal is one of the few places that your girl doesn't hate. There are plenty of places in Europe and around the world that your girl doesn't not like. So yeah, Portugal was just one of the few places that, yeah, I could see myself living in. I'm going to actually pause real quick. I wish I could show this to all of you, but it would take a lot of maneuvering and whatever. But I'm staring at the most beautiful sunset right now. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm recording this episode about choosing to live here and being here and fucking doing it actually for real. And I'm just looking at this beautiful. If you ever see me like kind of looking out past the camera, it's because I'm just admiring this view, this beautiful life that I've built for myself. We're going to talk about right now how I built that. Why did I choose Portugal? The original plan was actually to go to Italy. I really love Italy. It's one of my favorite countries, and I could really see myself living in Rome. And yeah, so the original plan when I was first choosing to move abroad, really actually planning and figuring out, okay, what is this life gonna look like? I was originally gonna digital nomad for a while, actually, and I was planning on traveling 1 month in each country. For example, I was gonna go down to Mexico, and then I was gonna go to Australia for a while, and then I was gonna go sort of up into a bunch of European countries. I was gonna go through Estonia. That actually was where my initial visa plan was going to go through, but they don't have a very good renewal process, and I wanted something a little bit more long-term and sustainable. So anyway, I was going to go through Estonia, I was going to go through Amsterdam and the Netherlands, I was going to go through, I think, like Greece and come through Portugal and maybe Spain a little bit, though I don't super love Spain. Sorry, y'all. I know I've said that before on this podcast. But anyway, so I was going to spend 1 month in each country. And I realized that that's actually not a very sustainable way to travel, at least for me, because it's just not enough time, right? 1 month sounds like a long time, but when you're traveling and you're constantly hopping, like it's actually not that much time. So anyway, I was going to leave my cat, Jeremy, as you all know, with my brother. But this plan I had created, I think 2021 or 2022. And then I can't remember which year, but sometime between 2022 and when I actually chose to move, my brother adopted 2 kittens, and they're the best. They're my little baby niece and nephew, and I love them so much. But I did have to adjust my plan because Jeremy, my cat, would not want to live with 2 other cats. That's a story for another time of why he doesn't like other cats. So I did have to, realizing for my own purposes that I couldn't really actually be traveling, like jumping around 1 month at a time. And I also couldn't leave my cat behind. So I had to create a plan that was a little bit more permanent and a little bit more home base rather than nomading. So I came in 2024 in October. Was it? September or October. I think it was like tail end of September, beginning of October 2024, and visited Lisbon and I visited Porto for a week each, just to see sort of if I could see myself living here and like where I would want to live within those cities. I really was trying hard to decide between the two, and everyone has their own opinion, so like my choices are obviously not going to be your choices, but personally for me, I was really looking for the signs when I first got here of just letting the universe and letting the city itself tell me, like, was I aligned for this place? Is this the right city for me to be living in? I really thought that it was going to be like Lisbon, hands down. It actually ended up being a pretty close decision because I loved Porto. It was so beautiful. So, for those of you that don't know, Lisbon is the biggest city in Portugal and it's down towards the south end of the country. And Porto is another well known city here in Portugal and it's up in the north. And I loved Porto so much. It really reminds me of like a European Portland, if that makes sense. Portland, Oregon, for those of you who have been. If you've never been, Portland, what we know from pop culture and media, like Portlandia and all those things, is rings pretty true. It's not exactly accurate. Portland folks, please don't come for me. I love y'all, even though I'm from Seattle and we're technically supposed to be like enemies or whatever. I don't think of it that way, but I will say Seattle is better. Ooh. I'm about to start feuds on this podcast. Anyway, Porto. I decided I didn't want to live there, but I loved it so much. It's such a beautiful city. I really need to go back. I have friends who live in Porto, and so I really should probably pop back up soon. It's only 3 hours from Lisbon. But point being, it was a little too rainy for my taste. And I, being from Seattle, I was like trying to move to a place that rained a little less. I wasn't trying to move to like a carbon copy weather-wise of Seattle. And it was also a little too small city-wise for me. There is across the bridge in Porto, the city of Gaia, which is where a lot of people live. So I could have lived there and maybe I could see myself someday living up there. But there were so many signs when I got to Lisbon. And that was the first week that I spent in Portugal. And it was just the very first day I landed in Portugal, I randomly ran into a friend from Seattle. Shout out to you, Britt. And I was standing outside this like coffee shop and I heard like a knock on the window. And I turned, I was like, oh, who is trying to get my attention? I turn and I look and I'm like, oh my God, I know you. What are you even doing here? I didn't expect to see her at all. And so anyway, that very first sign right when I got here, it was a little mind boggling and was the very first indication that this was the right decision for me and this was the place for me. So I continued to look for signs as I was here. And I saw quite a few, but I think the most significant one is when I went to the Santa Justa lift, which is the elevator down in Chiado area, the touristy area, which, by the way, if you ever visit Lisbon and you're trying to take that lift, you don't have to wait in line and you don't have to pay the fee to go up. You could literally just walk up to the Carmu Archaeological Museum and there's a back path that literally takes you to the viewpoint for free. So if you ever need that tip or the instructions on how to get there, hit me up because I will send that to you so that you don't have to wait in a fucking long ass line for no reason. But the point is, it was at that viewpoint at the top that there was the northeast corner of that sort of viewpoint. I looked out and I stood there for so long. I just remember looking out in that direction of the city and I saw sort of the buildings in the distance. And there was something about it that I literally, as I was looking out in that very specific direction, I kind of saw my future unfold in front of me. I saw my cat Jeremy on the windowsill of the apartment that we lived in. I saw me just sitting at the table and working. I saw the kitchen unfold. I just saw literally almost like watching a movie. It just watched my life unfold in front of me in that direction. And it turns out that if you look at the trajectory of where I was standing and where I was looking, my current apartment, this apartment that I'm in right now, is in the exact direction that I was looking in from that viewpoint, what is it, like 2.5 years ago, which is wild. Not 2.5, 1.5, 1.5 years ago, which is so wild to me. I think that was one of the first really definitive signs from the universe that I was like, oh my God, I'm meant to live here. This is the place for me. So that's a really big reason why I ended up choosing Lisbon. But, when people in bars and at restaurants and, when you're all hanging out ask you, like, why did you choose Lisbon? Why did you choose Portugal? I don't have the entire time to explain all of that to them. But here it is. This is my just more in depth way of explaining why I chose to come to Portugal and Lisbon specifically. It also is the visa and just everything in terms of immigrating here. It's a pathway to citizenship in Portugal. It is in Spain as well. And I know that there are going to be people, especially Portuguese people, especially, folks who are feeling the impact of so many people moving to these countries and immigrating here and leaving the United States to come here, is that I get that I'm speaking from a place of real privilege. I totally recognize that. And that, I live here and I make an American salary. And I get that people are frustrated that Americans are coming here seeking a pathway to EU citizenship. And for me, it's personally because I do want to build a life here. In terms of energetics, I haven't had my astrocartography done. For those of you that don't know, it's like where astrologically, based on your chart, where your sort of lifelines go globally and where energetically you should be setting up your life and building something beautiful because you align with that place geographically. And so I haven't had that done yet, but I do think it's somewhere in this part of the world is where is where my line would pass through, because I energetically really love it here. And I'll talk about that later in the episode as well, of just how wonderful it is to slow down. I'm still unlearning my American, like, go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle mindset and energy. But I really love this place. I love living here. And I totally understand that there is gentrification going on in terms of the Portuguese people and all the immigrants and all the quote unquote entitled Americans. So yeah, I totally recognize that. And I am so grateful to be able to have come here and chosen this life and built it the way that I'm building it. And yeah, I thank all of the people that have helped me get here and just the Portuguese people in general. I mean, it's just been really wonderful. But I recognize that there's a lot of privilege to it, that there is some tensions in terms of immigration and all of that all over the world. But yeah, so anyway, that's why I did end up choosing Portugal. In terms of the process, I know a lot of people are very curious as to how I actually got here. I had to go through sort of a specific, it's based on region. And because I'm from the West Coast, I went to the San Francisco office to get my visa. I think it's like one office sort of per region of the United States. So mine was San Francisco. I worked with a really wonderful agency to help me get my visa and my residency card. Shout out to my friends at Start Abroad. I will post a link in the show notes of the actual service that I use so that all of you, if you're looking to move to Portugal, I believe they also do Costa Rica and Panama as well. But anyway, check out their website. They're amazing. They did such great work for me and I highly recommend them. So they actually helped me get my visa. They helped me get my residency card once I actually got to Portugal. And then I worked with my friend Malcolm from Samana Life. He helped find me my beautiful, beautiful apartment. Maybe I'll have to do an apartment tour at some point. But I love this place. It's very close to my dream apartment. There's no AC and there's no balcony, which are two things I really, really wanted. But other than that, the view is amazing, and I really hope I never take it for granted. And this wonderful space behind me. So Malcolm helped me do that. And yeah, just working with these people. And I also was selling a house at the same time. So I was working with a realtor to sell the house. And I was also working with an estate attorney because we kind of had some kind of like iffy, not iffy, but just complicated sort of mechanisms in terms of how we were going to sell the house. And so between my visa agency, Start Abroad, Malcolm, my relocation expert, shout out to you, you're the best, my realtor and my estate attorney, all those people really helped me get here. This is a story that I will never shut up about, so you may hear it again. My house, so I was selling the house and I was getting the visa at the same time. And my visa got approved the very same day that my house closed. It still blows my mind. Like, it still boggles my mind that that is a reality. And was another huge sign from the universe that this is aligned for me. This was the path that I needed to choose. So your girl got her visa approved the same day her house closed. Everything sort of came together in the right time. And I moved to Portugal with 5 suitcases, my snowboard bag, and my cat. I remember when I first landed in Lisbon, having like all of those and just like going through the airport with my 2 big ass carts with both suitcases and the board over it and Jeremy right in front of me. And I was just like, oh, making my way through the airport. I sold and or donated 80 to 90-ish% of all the things that we had in the house and that I owned. And so, yeah, ended up with still 5 big ass suitcases. And then when I got here, I had my immigration appointment and I'm going to say this again, which is another sign from the universe that this was the aligned path for me. I got my residency card in 2.5 weeks after my appointment, which is unprecedented. Most of the people who had to get a residency card on average wait like at least a few months to even a few years for some people. So the fact that I got mine in 2.5 weeks, it's just all signs to me that the universe was like, stamp of approval. This is the right path for you. This is meant for you. What I will say also is that it cost me tens of thousands of dollars to do this. So it is not cheap to move, quote unquote, legally, which is why your girl will always support, quote unquote, illegal immigration, because it's expensive to immigrate legally. And I use legally very loosely because I'm just like, legally according to who? Like, for those of you that watch the video, you'll see my personality come out that way. Love y'all. But anyway, it's expensive. It is quite expensive. I mean, there is an income threshold for the visa that I came on. I came on the D8. Personally, it is the digital nomad visa. There is a D7 visa that you can come on as well, which is the passive income, which I frankly think is the one that I should have come on. But I digress. So yeah, there is an income threshold and you need to be able to prove whether you're self-employed or employed by an American company or wherever that you do make that income threshold. So that's important. And you also need to set up a Portuguese bank account before you apply for your visa. And I think they need minimum 10,400 or something like that euro in that bank account. So like that's another $10,000 that you need to be able to like produce and show the government that you have. I also needed to pay, I believe, 3 months rent up front. I can't remember if it was 6 months or 3 months. I think it was 3 months rent up front that I needed to pay. And I needed to secure that before I got my visa. So I was paying double rent on an apartment here in Lisbon, as well as my accommodations in Seattle while the house was being sold. And so I was paying double rent from March until June. It wasn't super fun. And then also my cat, Jeremy, in order to move him, that also cost a couple $1,000s as well. In order to get sort of the certificate, the international travel certificate, because not a lot of vets offer that, especially in Washington State. I had to jump through so many hoops to find a proper sort of certified vet, and that certificate costs so much fucking money. So I will just preface this by saying that it takes a lot of resources to be able to move here the way that I did. So I wanted to set some sort of realistic expectations because it's not something that everyone could just pick up and do without some budgeting and planning and all of that stuff. But this was the first time, truly the first time in my life that I have made a decision entirely for myself and no one else. And that is kind of wild, right? I mean, I know a lot of people out there don't have the life that I have had. You know, they haven't like lost a parent at a young age and had to raise themselves and all that stuff. But like every decision I made before my decision to leave the US and move here, it always had some kind of tie to someone else. What my family expected of me, the responsibility that I felt to others, and this decision to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to pick up my life and I'm going to move it across the world. That in and of itself truly was the very first time in my entire life, in my, what was it, like 29-ish, 30-year-old life, you know, 3 decades in, was the first time I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to choose me. And I do want to pat myself on the back a little bit because I know a lot of you, especially my eldest daughters, especially my eldest daughters from immigrant families, will know that that is not an easy thing to do. That is actually an incredibly difficult thing to do. And in terms of emotions from making this decision and actually leaving and actually following through, because if I really were honest with myself, I would have wanted to do this back in 2019. I tell people like, oh, the pandemic happened, and it did, and that was a reason why it got delayed, but it really was fear. Like I was just scared to take this risk and to uproot my entire life and move away from everything I've ever known. And I was really scared. It's a very scary decision. It takes a lot of courage to choose yourself and to do all the things that I did. I mean, I'm not saying that to be like, your girl's courageous, your girl's so brave. But it is, especially as an immigrant eldest daughter, like that is not an easy decision. But I did also feel like a lot of excitement. I saw just so much potential and expansiveness from just this decision of like, this whole life I could build. I can choose how I want it to look. I can choose where I want it to be. I can choose everything. You know what I mean? And that excitement and that feeling of expansion really helped drive me through the fear, helped motivate me to continue to follow through on this decision that I knew and the universe was showing me was right for me. What was I excited to leave? I was excited to leave. I mean, I'm gonna have to try to choose my words carefully here. Recently, I have learned that I don't choose my words very carefully, and so I'm gonna go, I'm gonna try to do that now. I was excited to leave the responsibilities I had in Seattle. And I know that people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, boo hoo, like, what a privileged life. Your life is so hard. I was given the responsibility when I was very young to take care of this house that we had in Seattle, this property that my family had bought to sort of have like a stake in Seattle and to have our familial home base, if you will, in Seattle. And I personally, for a lot of different reasons, and maybe we'll do an episode on the decision I made there to not be a homeowner anymore. Oh, that's a good one. That's a very, very good one. I will totally do an episode on that. But I unwittingly became a homeowner at a very young age. And I think, yeah, around like 14 is when I was tasked with the responsibility by my family as the best English speaking person and the only like oldest person of authority in Seattle. Yeah, at 14. To take care of this beautiful house that I grew up in. And I will say, again, a huge privilege to have been able to do, but it was a lot of responsibility. I mean, over the course of 10 years, like it cost me over $100,000 to take care of that house, from like repairs to maintenance to all these things. And so I was really excited to leave that behind and to not bring that with me, because if I were to choose again, I don't think I would choose being a homeowner. So we'll get into that at some point in a later episode. But yeah, I felt all this, like, as I said earlier, this familial pressure and this like sense of control that my aunt and my family had to try to impose on me. I don't think monotony is totally the right word, but Seattle was just all I'd really known. I mean, I did go to school in Chicago and I did live abroad for a little bit, but like Seattle was really all I knew. It was what I grew up with. It was where I spent a good chunk of my adult life. And I was just ready for something new. I was ready to get away from what I was super familiar with. And I was also really, really excited to get away from the fucking HOA. That was a big reason why I sold my house as well, is because fucking HOA. HOAs are truly probably one of the worst things invented in this world. For those of you that don't know, and bless you, what bliss you must live in to not know what an HOA is. For those of you that don't know, an HOA is a homeowners association. It's a mechanism built in the United States, a torture mechanism, basically, where a bunch of nosy ass bitches who don't have anything better to do with their time come together and create all these fucking rules for the neighborhood to have standardization and uniformity and curb appeal. Jesus fucking Christ, if I never hear the word curb appeal ever again in my goddamn life. Oh, sorry, I had to take a moment to, to unpiss myself off because fucking HOA. Anyway, yeah, I was very excited to get away from that because they had just so many rules and they were just so nosy and they were always up in my business. And so, anyway, fuck that shit. And speaking of, other American inventions of just like American city planning and architecture, it feels so oppressive, especially now that I've lived somewhere where I know this is a very European concept, and I'm sure other places in the world as well, other than the United States, is just this idea, at least in Europe, of like centers, right? Like squares that neighborhoods are kind of centered around. And there is no center really in a lot of American cities and neighborhoods. It's just like sprawling, right? Sprawling streets, highways, and all that stuff. But like you don't really feel these little like pockets of community and where people come together to congregate and to connect with each other. Like you just don't get that sense in the States. At least I have never experienced that in the 20, almost 30 years that I lived there. I knew that staying in Seattle meant that I was always going to be on a certain trajectory. And I wanted to break that. I wanted to break that trajectory. I wanted to try something different. And I wanted to go somewhere else. What I knew I was going to miss and what I retroactively know that I miss now is the people. There are so many people that I love in Seattle. I love you all so much. You guys are a huge reason why I was able to choose myself and why I was able to build this life that I love. I especially miss my brother. And I especially miss our weekly dinners and to be able to, see each other all the time. I miss you. I miss you, Kevin. I love you so much. That was a big thing that I knew that I was going to miss. Another one is, nature. I miss nature being easily accessible. Not that there's not nature here in Lisbon or in Portugal. It's just, I'm from Seattle and we had a hop, skip, and a jump away, a stone's throw away from anywhere I was in Seattle. Like I could reasonably in about half an hour to an hour find a hiking trail. Or I lived literally like 30 minutes away from a fucking ski resort mountain. And so I could go snowboard in like 30 minutes from my house. And that was really wonderful. I also lived near a bunch of hiking trails. I could also drive to the coast and I could also drive to the sound and I could just see all these things from water and lakes and oceans to mountains and forests and all these beautiful things that I had ready access to that I just don't as much here in Lisbon. Kind of breaks my heart. And just my hoa life, if you know, you know, my Twilight girlies and my Twilight babes, I love y'all. And being from Seattle and just always being able to go to La Push and being able to live my hoa life and go out to the coast and cosplay mentally, not physically, but mentally cosplay as just this like girl who lives in Seattle, who gets to visit the beach and gets to live her life and da. I miss that. I miss that a lot. I think probably one of the biggest things I miss is good Asian food. Yeah, let's take a moment for the good Asian food. I found some places that like for Lisbon, for Portugal is good Asian food, but like for America or for actual Asia is not. No offense, y'all. Portugal does not do Asian food very well, especially Chinese food, in my opinion, obviously, because I am Chinese, but really, especially Thai food. I have not found a single good, like really good Thai food place here. I've had friends who are trying to introduce me to some, so we'll see if that answer changes. And I also, my biggest one is your girl, for those of you that know, back in Seattle, I used to have spam musubi like literally 4 or 5 times a week. And I haven't had a single spam musubi any of the time that I've been here. I haven't had it in over a year, and not over a year, but close to a year. And oh, as someone who's had it 4 times a week at least for a long time, for like 2, almost 3 years, just not having it really breaks my heart. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, why don't you just make it yourself? And I'm like, it tastes so much better when someone else makes it. That's just my opinion. But yeah, good non-white food in general. Like I haven't really found a good Mexican place either. Your girl just wants a good taco. She just wants a good like just something good. Anyway, so the food here is good. I'm not saying the food here is not good. The food here is delicious, but it's just certain things like Asian food and Mexican food and yeah, certain cuisines that you just they don't get entirely right here, unfortunately. But again, I digress. It took a lot though to make this decision and to leave behind the things I was leaving behind, but also be excited for the things that I was moving towards. I never actually really had a big cry about leaving or about selling the house that I grew up in. Like I really expected to have like a full blown like moment, but I never really did. And maybe someday, I mean, it took me 12 years or something after the hardest thing that ever happened in my life happened to actually properly cry about it. And I didn't actually properly cry about it until I was shrooming. And so maybe, maybe in 10 years, 12 years, I will be shrooming and I'll have like an actual proper cry about what I left behind all those years ago. I am still in the process of like figuring out my emotions around moving. I'm still in my first year of being here. But what I will say is what I was risking and getting in return for that risk, like truly outweighed what I was leaving behind on a personal level, right? So I knew that what I was going to get on the other side of this decision really outweighed all this stuff that I was like, oh no, like I don't want to leave that behind. Like I don't, and it drove me, like I said, through that fear and through that hesitancy and through the doubt and through the scarcity to this life of freedom that I've built. I'm living my dream life. I mean, I'm always going to strive for more and the journey never ends. But if I really sat down to think about it, I'm living the life that I chose. I'm living the life that I dreamed of all this time, right? And having this freedom, this supportive societal structure to have social services, to have great public transportation, to have cops that aren't looking to like kill and harm people. That's freedom. That's a big deal. To be able to have the freedom to travel the world the way that I want to be able to have the freedom of slower days as the standard, right, for reality here, for life here. And so that freedom is really a big reason why I chose to make this decision for myself. And frankly, for me, Seattle, it was comfortable. I do think I got pretty complacent living in Seattle. And what do I mean by that? I mean, when I was younger, I had this rule where I was like, I can only spend 5 years max in one place. So I went to school in Chicago for 4 years. Then I went to Copenhagen for 4 months. What was that? I came back to Seattle in 2016 and I didn't leave until 2025. So almost 10 years, right? 9 years there. And I could feel my world kind of closing in on me, if that makes sense. Again, I'm trying to choose my words a little more carefully, but I felt suffocating is not exactly the right word, but like it did feel restrictive to be in this same place that I was so comfortable for so long. I mean, I've talked about this before, but like your girl coasted, business wise at least, and life wise a lot, from 2022 to 2025, right? Like I was just coasting. It was nice at the time, but like it became really restrictive after a while. Like I had to decide if I was willing to stay comfortable in the familiar, stay comfortable, but also stay like small almost. And to stay at that same trajectory that I was talking about, the trajectory that I knew I was probably going to stay at for a long time if I stayed in Seattle, or decide if I wanted to risk it all and quantum leap into this new life, into this life that I knew was meant for me and that I knew I could build. And for me, the comfort that I felt in Seattle, it meant that I probably could have coasted for years it meant that I probably could have never addressed the mindset work and all the work that I've done since I actually have moved here and gotten inspired by this environment, by new people around me, by these new opportunities. Like, I would have just stayed comfortable and I would have stayed in the familiar in Seattle and I would have just kept going along. And I feel like choosing to move here really helped me go from this like monotonous trajectory to this like really expansive, really just exponential, explosive energy and trajectory for my life. I mean, this new environment and this new city, it's helped me get such an interesting, like, new perspective on my business and on my life and on what I'm capable of. I mean, since I've moved here, I've launched a new membership. I've created a new signature method. I'm offering new services. I'm doing all this mindset work. I have all these new people around me to help me see like what my life could look like. I went on a language retreat back in September and I went to the Azores Islands. They're so beautiful. And the average age of the people on that trip, which I didn't know beforehand, was like 50 to 60. And so I was the youngest person, other than one of the other girls who was sort of like on the team for the trip. I was the youngest person on that trip. And I learned so much hearing from these people who are in their 50s and 60s because they were talking about like, oh, our family, we lived in Switzerland for a while, and now some of my kids live in Australia, and some of my kids live in the States, and some of my kids live in France, and some of my kids live in Indonesia. And it's just like, it's just so amazing to see all these people that had chosen to leave the United States and chosen to have these new experiences and live in these places all over the world. I felt like I was a little late in making this decision. Part of me for a long time kicked myself for not making it earlier, not having the courage to do this earlier. Because, I could have been here when I was 25, right? Versus 31. And I just realized, especially going on that trip with them, that there's so much life ahead of you. Like, life is short, but it's also, there's so many chapters to it that you can create and that there's so much that you can do. And these people that I had met on this trip, they all had lived in so many different countries and they had so many different chapters of their lives. And they were saying, like, oh, in my 30s, I was doing this. Way different than things I'm doing now because I did something different in my late 30s and in my 40s and da 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 da. And so it's just been really inspiring to see that, like, no, not everyone has to stay in America. Not everyone has to like stay in the same house that they've bought. I mean, no disrespect if that's the life that you want to live, but like, I thought that that kind of was my only option for a good chunk of my life. And to know that no, you don't have to do it that way is really a wonderful feeling. If I hadn't left Seattle, I really do think I would have stayed where I was for a lot longer. It probably would have taken me a lot longer to hire someone like an operations assistant the way I did at the end of last year. It would have taken me like quite a few more years to get to that point. I probably would still be panicking when it comes to client curveballs, especially financial curveballs. I probably would never, not never, but just like it would have taken me longer to work on my sales process and to work on my sales call skills and technique. And I would have just kept hoping that like things would change without actually changing how I fundamentally ran my life and ran my business. I would have gone the route of insanity, which is to try the same thing over and over again and hope for a different outcome, right? And yeah, I mean, moving here, I got to do all those things. I finally got to the point where I was ready to hire. I am still working on it, but I'm panicking less when I get client curveballs, and I'm working on my sales process. I'm working on those sales calls. I'm working how I change my structure of running my business as well as running my life. And I just don't think I would have really gotten there as quickly if I had stayed in the States and in Seattle. Was I nervous? Yes. Hell yes. I was very nervous. I was worried about the time zones being vastly different, right? Being 8 hours ahead of Seattle, of the West Coast. And I was worried about my internet not being as good. And I know that's kind of an irrational one, but never know what the situation is where you move. And I was worried that my clients would think that I couldn't do good work from a different country, that I couldn't do good work from across the world. And just like nervous about figuring out how to navigate this like new language and this new culture. And also about having to like essentially rebuild this network, this beautiful community, and this beautiful network of people and support systems that I had built personally and professionally in Seattle over decades, that I had to virtually start from scratch here. And that was really scary. But one of my favorite quotes, which my friends know, is really wherever you go, there you are, right? Wherever you go, there you are. Because you can try to move across the world and you can think, oh, maybe it'll fix all my problems and maybe it'll get rid of all these things that are going wrong in my life. Like, it won't. If anything, in some ways, it'll amplify some of those things, because it doesn't matter where in the world you go. It doesn't matter where you try to run and maybe try to hide. Wherever you go, there you are. You are there. All of your problems will come with you. And it's up to you to do something about that, right? And I'm going to say this again carefully, is that you can't heal in the environment you got sick in. And I'm not saying I got sick in Seattle. I love Seattle. I love it so immensely. I have so much pride for the city that I'm from. But it is where a lot of the toxicity that I had within myself and in my life, it's where most of it was born. I just knew that I couldn't get to where I wanted to be by staying there. And the people in Seattle that are listening to this, my friends, what I just said, it really doesn't have anything to do with you. All of you are so wonderful, truly. And I appreciate you all so much. And I can't even begin to express how grateful I am for each and every one of you. So I wasn't leaving Seattle for that. My friends there and all you amazing people in my supportive community have a hard time thinking about moving away from all of that. But I knew that I needed to make that decision for me. I needed to come here and build this life that I've built. What does my daily life look like? Well, my personal daily life, the European way, is basically I have my morning routine, which is like to put my sunscreen on, brush my teeth, take my night guard out, maybe do some qigong in the morning. And then I'll go to the gym. I love my 10 a.m. Embody crew. I love y'all. You're the best. I go to the gym 5 days a week. And then I'll come back and I'll do some like journaling, meditation, maybe do some tapping, and then have my lunch and all that stuff. And then I'll take some calls if I have calls that day, or I'll do some work that I need to do. Maybe I'll spend some time with my friends. I'll go maybe have a long lunch or have a long dinner and drinks and all of that good stuff. And then I do my evening routine, which is like flossing and skincare and night guard and cuticle oil and, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of like an average day for me. In the summer, your girl's a little more wild because her hoe likes to come out in the summer. So I do spend a lot more time out with friends and out in the evenings / into the late mornings. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little more, maybe later this summer. But yeah, I've been building this new life here. There are a lot of cultural differences, obviously, naturally. And I'm definitely navigating that, and also the new language that I'm still working on learning, and unlearning the sense of urgency that Americans have, because here in Portugal, nobody has a single fucking drop of a sense of urgency. And so yeah, just like walking down the street, going to the store, like all this stuff where I'm just like, oh, give me my shit now. Like, I got places to be. And most Portuguese people are like, calm down. We'll get where we need to get when we get there. So trying to embody that a little bit more. But yeah, just like building this community, this new community. This is the first time I've ever had a really wonderful gym community that I love, because your girl used to be like an LA fitness girly. So it was like corporate gym vibes. And I also used to do F45 for a little bit before I moved, and never really felt like a huge sense of community there. But yeah, here, my Embody crew, I love y'all. It's the first time that I've been like, oh my gosh, I love the people that I go to the gym with. I love to see all of these people and for us to cheer each other on. And I've also been trying to go to like more events here in Lisbon. Oh, there's like an event at almost every hour of the day here. So if you're ever bored, like there will be things to do in this city. And then just trying to surround myself with maybe more Portuguese folks. I am surrounded by a lot of immigrants right now, a lot of people who have moved here who aren't actually from here. But yeah, just building that community and really building my village, right? And nurturing those relationships so that there's reciprocity and that we're supporting each other. And if I am looking to build a village, that, I do at the end of the day need to move out of this individualistic mindset and this mindset of like, I don't owe anyone anything, because, and this will probably be another episode too, of like, we do owe each other things. We're building this society of collaboration and community and all of that stuff. And yes, we do. And so I am trying to build that village right now. I'm also trying to find more stability. I'm still in my first year here. I still have to find this new network of my hairstylist, my nail artist, my facialist, my dermatologist, doctors, dentists, vets, like just all of these things that I knew where to find and how to find it back in Seattle that I need to figure out here. And I'm currently in a very growth and scale phase in my business, which those of you that are following me on Instagram and in my newsletter have heard about, but I'll talk a little bit more on the podcast about that as well. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how I want my life to look from 2026 right now and beyond. So I'm sure y'all will follow along on that journey as your girl figures it out. But I will leave you with this: how to choose yourself. How do we, our listeners, our beautiful listeners, do this for ourselves? How do we choose ourselves, right? So I think the first thing in choosing yourself is realizing that this desire that you have for like a particular life. So for me, the desire I had for my Euro life, really, it needs to outweigh the responsibility you feel for others or how others would react to you making this decision. So what I mean by that is prioritizing what you want and what you desire over how other people are going to feel about it and what other people are going to say about it and how other people are going to tell you that it's a mistake, or they're going to impose their own fears and their own notions and their own scarcity onto you. Because there will be people, I hope there isn't. I wish that there were less people in my life when I was telling people that I was making this decision. I wish there was less people that came in with so much doubt and so much scarcity energy, because I had so many people be like, well, what if you don't like it when you move there? Or what if you regret selling the house? And what if this? And what if that? And I'm just like, yeah, and what if? What the fuck if? You know what I mean? Like, I can always move back to Seattle. This notion societally, especially American societally, that like, you can't leave because what if? Because what if you don't like it? What if this? What if that? And it's like, okay. That's a part of the process. It's a part of the lesson. That's a part of the journey. You know what I mean? And so, especially my eldest daughters, especially my eldest immigrant daughters, if you're hesitating to make a decision like this for yourself, whether that's moving across the world, whether that's starting a business, whether that's changing your career, whether that's choosing someone to be in your life, or whatever decision that you're hesitating to choose yourself on, don't let other people's fear scare you. Don't let other people's fear be your fear. Do you know what I mean? Like, let the excitement that you have for this potential life, for this potential reality, let that excitement push you through the fear. Let the possibility for more, for this like expansiveness, let that prevent you from staying in your comfort zone, from staying in the familiar. You know what I mean? Like, let yourself out of that prison almost. And think about like, what would your future wealthy self choose? The wealthy self, the you that is living this best life, the life where you're thriving, the life where you are aligning and bringing in all these amazing opportunities that you've only ever dreamed of having. What would that person choose? What would she choose? What would he choose? What would they choose? Thinking about that and letting yourself sit in that and letting yourself embody that, that's going to be a really big step towards committing to choosing yourself. And also, just don't forget that you can lean on your community, that you can ask for help from the people who care about you and the people you care about. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. And that you can hire help if you ever need it, right? Attorneys, coaches, service providers, visa agencies, relocation experts, like whoever it is that you need to help you, whether that's the people in your life or the people that you hire, they will help you get to where you need to go. And ultimately, to like ground in yourself, not ground in other people, not ground in a partner, not ground in a child, not ground in anybody but yourself. Because no matter where you go, there you are, right? No matter where you go, grounding in yourself and having that confidence and that assuredness in yourself, that's what's going to protect you. That's what's going to keep you on this journey and on this path. And so I really encourage all of you to go out there and to make this decision for yourself. Whatever decision you're wanting to make, taking a moment and just like deep breath in, deep breath out, and saying, you know what? I'm doing this for me. I'm grounding in myself. I'm choosing myself, and I'm choosing to commit to that decision. And I really hope that whatever decision, big or small, that you're wanting to make to choose yourself, that you're able to follow through on it. Okay? So I will leave you with that. Yappers, it's been wonderful. This is a long one, but I hope that it inspired you. I hope that maybe I'll see some of you moving abroad or moving to Portugal or moving to wherever, because I will say it's scary, but for the most part, I would say the majority of people who have ever made this decision have not regretted it. And I just like just looking out on this beautiful view that I have, on this beautiful apartment, this beautiful life. I am really, truly so grateful. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. And I will see you in the next episode, Yappers. You are all the best. Stay true to yourself. And until next time, ciao, ciao.
If this episode gave you something to think about, please take it and do something with it. If you want more of this, or you want to see what my life actually looks like, follow me on Instagram at It's Almost with 2 L's. We'll be sure to link it in the show notes. You can also follow me at Almost Consulting for some juicier, spicier takes. And if you're serious about getting your emails to convert, you can check out the Conversion Club, a monthly membership for founders ready to turn email into their most profitable and sustainable sales channel, with expert guidance, plug-and-play tools, and strategy you'll actually use. Check it out at the link in the show notes. I'll see you in the next episode, Yappers.